Hmm. To make an autobiographical turn, to speak about your mother, my own grandmother, only a few years shy of your mother's age, also passed away last year due to like a rapid decline in Alzheimer's. Um, and when you were speaking of your own mother, you mentioned how emotional intelligence was the last thing to go. And this really affected me because it suggested an awareness of how other people are feeling, but a complete incapacity to express your own emotions. Could you explain what's the significance of emotional intelligence being the last thing to go?
Well, it just shows how important that is to us as human beings, and I think that people have come to realize that the big explosion in emotion research happened in the last 10, 20 years, but emotional intelligence became a popular topic even before that. I mean, I think about 10 more years before that. And we now know that people with emotional intelligence do better in their relationships, live longer, do better in their workplace. It's very important to us. It's important to us for a good reason, too, which is that human beings, as we evolved in the wild, we were not capable of surviving alone. And so we lived in groups of 20, 30, 40 individuals. Um, and we could survive if we cooperated within those groups. And so it was very important to have, as we were evolving, that emotional intelligence to understand what other people are thinking and feeling, what their attitude was about what you're doing, um, or how what their health was, if they needed help, and so forth, just to kind of provide the oil for the machine. So this is something that's very basic to us, and that's why it's interesting that it's the last one of the last things that you lose,
Mm.
and it's and also it also illustrates that it's on a very deep level in your brain. It's an unconscious level. Emotions don't come because you decide to feel this or that. They just come. They're automatic, and your understanding and your reading of people also comes automatically. And so, my mother, even though in her conscious world had a very rudimentary understanding of things, you could talk to her about what you're eating or the weather, but
Mm.
she couldn't
She loved
say
chocolate.
add. You couldn't add, yeah, chocolate. You couldn't add 17 and 8, or she kind of some remember the president kind of, or but you couldn't get into a very deep discussion. But in terms of emotions, she was pretty observant still, and pretty on target.
Mm. Could you describe like what that is? What is emotional intelligence? And sorry for such a
Well,
basic
that's
question, but it's
sure. Well, that
you know.
that and that. Oh, the book. I wrote the book to help people increase their own emotional intelligence. So, emotional intelligence is understanding first of yourself, what you're feeling, why you're feeling it, and then of other people, what are they feeling, and at any given time, why are they feeling it? How are they? How is this your feelings? How does do your feelings affect your thoughts and your mental calculations, your decisions, and how does that work for other people? And when you're aware of that, uh, that you have an advantage because you understand what's going on. And also, I should say that emotions can get out of control. For one thing, emotions have a certain persistence. They don't disappear immediately after the trigger happens. You can, if you're afraid, if you see a bear and then you go the other direction, you're going to stay in that state of fear for some time, and so uh, that can be counterproductive if this next situation that you're in is not the situation appropriate to a fear state, and you're still in a fear state, or if you overreact, somebody cuts you off in traffic and you get really angry, that can be counterproductive. So by being more mindful of what you're feeling and why, you can also take steps to mitigate that. And
Mm.
I have a chapter on what they call emotion regulation, which is how to, when that happens, how to step in and alter the emotion that you're feeling. And it's again, since emotion is created on a subconscious level, it's a little bit tricky to do that. But there are techniques that people have found and used over many years, that some of which I'm sure everyone out there it just uses as as common sense, but there are
Mm.
ways to regulate your emotions, and now we've studied them and we know which ways work and which don't.
So you're suggesting that you can become more emotionally intelligent. You can always teach yourself it because
Yeah,
so it's not naturally endowed like say your other type of intelligence might be. You know, some people are just born with more computing power.
it can be. I mean, some people have a naturally intuitive understanding of emotion, but it's just like you could have a natural intelligence, but you still want to go to school. And I think with emotions, it works the same way. You have a
Mm,
certain natural intelligence, but you still maybe want to learn about it.
mm. So it's like it's experiences, right? I mean, the way I remember emotional intelligence started being spoken about when I was in university. Never heard about it in high school, and I'd just taken like a business ethics course or something, and it was brought up. Um, and it was interesting to learn about because all of a sudden, you know, you got another way to measure yourself. Like, oh, I'm X amount emotionally intelligent compared to the rest of the people in the room because we all took this standardized test to see how emotionally intelligent we were. But it is, like you say, you know, more than just an understanding of one's emotions. I mean, it's an ability to interpret another person's emotions. I mean, it's right tied in there with empathy, right? To be emotionally intelligent.
Right. No, that's true. Right. And that helps not only you, but it helps society to work when people are
Mm.
more emotionally intelligent.
So we're speaking through pixels and wavelengths, and this is how much of the world's business is done at the moment. This is how I'm sure a lot of your podcasts are being done. This is a totally unnatural way to speak. If you could zoom out here and this was like a fourth breaking the fourth wall, I'm in my living room talking to a computer, you know? And it's so unnatural. You can't get a complete sense for my body language, my scent, whether that matters or not, my precise tone, and a million more unconscious things. As the author of Subliminal and Emotional, what is missing in our communication here, and what are the implications on our emotional intelligence potentially for the broader society, since this is how so much communication is being done?
Well, I think that if you're on on a Zoom call or some similar call as opposed to a phone call or
Mm-hmm.
texting, you're doing pretty well. I mean, I can see your expression and your not all of your body language, but some of
Mm-hmm.
it. Yeah, no, I don't get your scent, but
But does that matter? I mean, I'm just
I don't
wondering in
know. You
subliminal
tell
whether
me.
there are things.
The fart spray part wouldn't work, I guess,
Yeah.
but it's not that bad. And I found it's interesting. I found that in the height of COVID, I was staying in, and I would have these cocktail or meet a friend at a bar where we would just do it over Zoom. We would each make a drink, and sometimes it would be a few of us, and we would sit and just talk and have a drink over Zoom.
Mm,
And I found that this is interesting. Now, and in Subliminal, I talked about how your Subliminal is about the unconscious mind and how it affects you in a way that you don't realize your thoughts and your behaviors. It's a lot like the book, the emotional book, because that also is about how your thoughts and
mm.
behavior decisions are affected by, in this
How
case, your
instincts are
emotions.
kicking in a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What I found was that I would do that, and a few days later, I would think about, oh, I met Randy for a drink, and I would go, oh, no, actually, that was Zoom, but it kind of got blurred whether it was Zoom or not. In
Really?
my
Okay.
memory, it was more like it wasn't even relevant whether it was Zoom. And you'll see that if you read it. I have a chapter about memory and Subliminal, but that's how that works. So how you
Mm,
don't remember a memory. This is off topic, but just briefly, a memory is not a video or audio recording of what happened. It's more like there's certain key elements of it that are stored,
mm,
and when you need it, it's reconstructed from that and from other things in your brain, what you know,
mm,
what you expect, and things like that. So it would actually, after a while, I would think back and I couldn't even remember it was at a Zoom or was that at a real bar. And then, oh no, it was in May. It must have been a Zoom or something like that. So I think that we get quite a bit this way. But what you don't get is when you're texting. That's why we have emojis, for example. You don't. The emojis are very important, and I know
mm-hmm.
that there were people who are arguing about, there are people who for some reason don't like emojis or think that it's, I don't know, I don't know what I've just heard people criticize them, but I think emojis are
They're a minority, surely.
yeah, and
Mm,
punctuation is all very. It's just it's a crude, but at least it's something. So if I say something, it's easy to misinterpret it if you can't hear my inflections, right, or see
mm,
my face. That we
totally.
communicate so much that
Yeah.
way
Yeah.
without realizing it. So um, anyway, so I think Zoom is not too bad. I think what is what is bad are these purely text-based communications, and also maybe the supermassive communications we get through Twitter or Facebook, where uh, just throughout society in general, you can have emotional contagion happen because you're connected to so many other people, which is not
Mm,
natural, you know. And so one person's hate message or fear message can get amplified by hundreds of thousands or millions of people
hmm
who see the same thing and react to it, and then it goes back and forth and it feeds itself. But
mm.
you didn't ask that, but I answered
I
it.
guess the internet allows for all types of unnatural, non-evolutionary modes of distribution. Like you say, you can be in touch with more people than ever before, but we can also do this conversation. I'm surprised to hear you say that it's actually not necessarily going to affect our emotional intelligence or stifle its development or affect it much at all. Because I
Oh, did I
did
say that?
assume, well, yeah, you said it's fine. It's kind of like you
Well,
quite
I know,
enjoy
but
it.
I mean, I guess I'm saying that in our interaction, it's in each specific interaction, it's I think it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. But I don't think it would be good if we if you grow up having solely that. I mean, this is a stand-in for an interaction that we normally would have in person,
Hmm
and that I have experience with, and I've learned about interacting with other humans by being in their presence, and then I can, when needed, substitute Zoom for that, and it's not a bad substitute. I don't know if I'm not sure of what you were saying, but if you were saying, can we from birth to death just communicate this way because we can no longer go out?
That's a bit
I think
problematic.
something would be lost there. Yeah, no, yeah,
Yeah.
because this isn't 100%. This is maybe 75%. Like
hmm
right now, you can't tell what my hands are doing, right? so so but it's not bad for what we can do. It's certainly better than an audio interview or a text based
hmm
interaction.
No, that's cool. I mean, I wasn't suggesting that hyperbolic scenario as well. I mean, although that might necessarily be what the metaverse and potentially
Yeah.
these innovations in technology could potentially be drawing us towards. Um, but no, I mean, it's interesting to see. I find the whole topic of emotional intelligence extremely fascinating, because it really has nothing to do with the other type of intelligence, does it? One can be completely inarticulate mathematically and I don't know whatever other measures that it is, while at the same time have incredible emotional capacity to take on burdens, to take on other people's burdens, to understand what's happening to them before they've even said a word. That's like truly the emotional intelligence at play, isn't it?
Right, and studies have shown that in terms of success, at least professional success, the emotional intelligence is probably more important than raw, whatever what they call rational IQ or intelligence at analytical thinking. In physics, I think I don't think know if it's been studied, but it's probably not true. But out in the everyday world, the business world, I think in physics actually it works the other way in some sense. Not that emotional intelligence is bad, but social the need for social interaction is bad because it's a very lonely at least theoretical physics is a very lonely
Mm.
enterprise, and I sometimes think I would have done more research if I didn't need to interact with people. I could just sit in my office day after day, week after week,
Yeah.
just thinking and not feel the need to interact with other people. I probably could have got more done. And I see among physicists there are a lot of people who are like that.
You did give the archetypal example in the book of the non-emotional physicist and how brilliant he was. So I suppose there's truth to that. Though perhaps it could also be explained another way, which is simply just the non-emotionally intelligent person doesn't feel the necessity to, like, the, you could say, more on the spectrum, more autistic, more Aspergy. Typically the highest performing software engineers, the highest performing physicists, mathematicians, simply as a factor of spending more time doing the work and less time talking to people, and fulfilling whatever their need is, to talk to their girlfriend or to go drink a beer with someone to like calm down. Instead, they're just like, no, all of that stresses me out. And simply by factor of them working more, they become the brilliant ones. And it might not necessarily have anything to do with the fact that they are on the spectrum. It's simply just because they spent more time doing the thing.
Well, I feel that those who don't feel uh, the impulse, the need to interact a lot with other people, have an advantage, because they find it easier, I think, to lose themselves in their work for long periods of
Mm-hmm.
time. And I find that in my own life too. I I sometimes I'll go away to the desert, to a place I like there, total middle of nowhere, and lock myself in and up and work for a week, from when I wake
The
up. And
romantic author.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it is kind of like that, but it'll be. And I've talked to other authors who do that, from time to time. So I would go and I really work from 9 in the morning till around midnight. I would have a breakfast,
Wow,
work
that's amazing.
and work over breakfast. I would go to this little dive place, have something, and start getting into the work, rereading what I did yesterday or something. Then I would go
Mm-hmm.
back and sit there and work, around. Sometime in the early evening, I would go out and get some takeout food and from somewhere and put it in my room, but I wouldn't eat it. And then I would work until around midnight, and then I would have the food as my reward, and some tequila and beer, and
Wow.
uh, and that take maybe an hour or two for that, and then I'd go to bed and do it again. I do that for about a week,
Mm.
and I get so much done. I could get into it. I'm in a state of flow. Then you know what that is, the
Yeah.
psychological, yeah. And I would get much more deeper thinking and work done than I could if I stayed home or there's no distractions. And But after some days, you start to feel, at some point you start to go downhill for me, because I have no contact with anybody, and I start to feel the need for that, and then I can't just stay there anymore. I gotta leave. But now if I could do it, as some famous stories are, I think of people who do that, or who work that intensely for months at a time, like Stephen Hawking. His wife complained about when he got into like, especially when he was working out his theory of Hawking radiation, uh, months and months where he did nothing but work, and hardly, kind of ignored the kids, ignored her, and didn't have the need, I guess, for that kind of interaction. And look what he got done. So if he could only do that for a week, he may not have
Mm.
gotten they may not have
Mm-hmm.
reached the
Mm-hmm.
end.